Human trafficking, or modern-day slavery, is the fastest-growing criminal industry in the world. It happens within the borders and across the borders. Unfortunately, not even a single country is free from this crime. In Sri Lanka, human traffickers exploit domestic and foreign victims and also victims from Sri Lanka abroad. Due to poverty, ignorance, and the false promises of well-paying foreign employment opportunities offered by labor recruiters, many migrant workers become victims of a variety of situations, including, but not limited to, forced or exploited at labor, commercial sexual exploitation, domestic servitude, organ removal, forced begging, and forced criminality. In order to strengthen the coordination and collaboration of all monitoring and combating stakeholders, the government of Sri Lanka established the National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force in 2010, chaired by the Ministry of Justice. Sri Lankan government regularly submits trafficking in persons reports to the United States Department of State's Office to monitor and combat trafficking in persons. In 2015, 2016, and from 2019 to 2021, Sri Lanka remained on the Tier 2 watch list, raising concerns about being downgraded to Tier 3 in 2022. Meanwhile, a cabinet decision was made to shift the chairmanship of the task force from Ministry of Justice to the Ministry of Defense in order to develop an enhanced institutional mechanism that coordinates directly with the investigating authorities and intelligence services. The National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force, now composed to 20 stakeholders, and is currently under the direction of the Ministry of Defense since August 2021. Vision of the task force is to combat human trafficking in Sri Lanka through strengthened collaborative efforts of all stakeholders by addressing the root causes and vulnerabilities that expose individuals to the risk of human trafficking, preventing the crime, prosecuting the perpetrators, protecting and assisting victims of human trafficking in an expeditious manner, and responding to the emerging needs and trends whilst adopting a victim-centric approach. Under the guidance and leadership of the Secretary of Defense, the shape of the task force's functioning was re-established. The coordinating committee and highly skilled and dedicated officials were appointed under the supervision of the Chief of National Intelligence. Accordingly, activities geared towards preventing the occurrence of human trafficking, protecting victims of the crime, prosecuting perpetrators, and building strong partnerships with both domestic and international organizations are designed. The task force increased efforts in creating greater awareness among officials of the stakeholders and also the community. The task force is conducting many public awareness campaigns through all the media, and the response from the community is getting stronger gradually. The task force is cooperating with the media authorities and has trained one batch of journalists from television networks in Sri Lanka. With full sponsorship and assistance by the IOM, awareness programs were conducted to train the officials, including intelligence officers from the intelligence services and Triforce's officers deployed in various parts of the country covering all islands. And also initiated capacity building programs for officials of the stakeholders in order to enhance their capabilities and utilize them as trainers. The International Organization for Migration coordinated personal resources and provided full funding for entire programs. Taking a further step, the task force initiated to establish a hotline in collaboration with the IOM, and IOM trained selected officers to handle hotline operations by improving the professional approach. The task force recognized that increasing the number of successful prosecutions and convictions for human traffickers is equally important as other core areas. Actions and initiatives were taken to expedite some of the long-running cases, including foreign victim cases. IOM sponsored to send investigation and intelligence officers to Oman, and that lead to exposure huge trafficking network among recruiting agencies and some involved government officials. The task force has taken swift actions to repatriate victims of trafficking stranded in various destinations in collaborations with IOM and government officials. Due to its untiring effort, repatriation of victims of trafficking from Laos, Oman, Vietnam and Myanmar showcases the professionalism of all stakeholders. The government of Sri Lanka is in line with internationally accepted best practices and committed to curbing human trafficking in all its forms and manifestations with an aim to reach Tier 1. The government response to human trafficking predicated on 4 pillars: prevention, protection, prosecution and partnership according to the National Strategic Action Plan to monitor and combat human trafficking 2021 to 2025. The task force work on establishing a safe migration promotion unit at the Bandaranaike International Airport pursuant to the instructions from the Select Committee of Parliament to look into and report to Parliament its recommendations to ensure gender equity and equality with special emphasis on looking into gender-based discriminations and violations of women's rights in Sri Lanka. The task force builds partnerships with civil society and non-governmental organizations and encourages to collaborate with the task force in the fight against human trafficking. Various awareness programs and preventive activities were taken by the task force member institutions. Due to the dedicated commitment of the stakeholders of the task force and demonstrated overall increasing efforts compared with the previous reporting period, Sri Lanka was upgraded to Tier 2 in 2022 and remains in Tier 2 in 2023. The National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force Stakeholder Dialogue 2022 is a collaborative effort of the IOM and the Ministry of Defense. By strengthening the partnership between the task force and the IOM, the Regional Director of IOM for Asia and the Pacific meets the members of the task force and congratulate the efforts of the task force in the fight against human trafficking. We are the team that combats human trafficking in Sri Lanka. We are steady forward. We are united and dedicated. We task force ensure the human rights, security and dignity of our children, women and men.